So, is there anyone in the audience that has something they want to quickly pitch to one of our 3 or all panelists? Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to ask a question, which is, for each of you, what do you think? Well, you sort of answered it, that the American Well and the other one are a big success or a great idea in your opinion. For the two of you, which are the existing healthcare innovational companies that have gotten the furthest? Which ones stand out for you?
Well, I mean, I brought a couple of them up in my talk, but honestly, I mean, the most impressive is probably, I would say Dave Chase's Avado, has really made some great progress. He was one of our first clients, and just seeing what he could do, and then, he did well on MedStarter, which, in case anybody doesn't know, it's my website. And then he went on an equity crowdfunding site, and he raised another $1 million. And so he went from being a PHR that connected all sorts of devices. Actually, he started out with just one device. And then he said, I'm going to become the platform that all the devices are going to connect to so that the doctors and patients could share data. So he's been really executing on that really well. So I'm really impressed with him. He's won lots of awards in the last year. And so Avado, I would probably say.
Mm-hmm. Teresa?
I guess I come at it from at this work from a little bit of a different perspective, and so we funded different initiatives and projects.
But in what you see around you in the world of e-health?
Well, it's not what we see is not necessarily in the private sector, is more of the work that's being done in the community. So there are a couple of projects that have been really successful. And one that comes to mind is Project Echo, and it's a telemedicine project that essentially was connecting specialists to folks in rural areas. It started with hepatitis, spread to other conditions, and then spread over many counties, and has been proven to be effective. It now has funding from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, CMMI, and the VA to continue to spread in other areas and care conditions, and that's been highly effective.
I know that a lot of people who watch the digital space wonder about this whole question of why there aren't, although healthcare is of interest to everyone, healthcare is a huge market, why there aren't more large success stories in digital health.
Well, there are lots of large success stories in digital health. I would disagree with that. I mean, Practice Fusion just raised $70 million. They've got how many doctors using their solution?
When I say large, I meant the equivalent of say companies that would be in the top 20 amongst all businesses, not.
I mean, yeah, you definitely see that. But a lot of times, once they get to a certain scale, they get partnered with or purchased or acquired, right? So I mean, look at iTriage, it was doing great, and now it's part of the Aetna world. And so that's kind of like, it's one exit strategy. But then again, look at ZocDoc. They're doing great. They're getting bigger all the time, and they're executing well. So, I mean, I think a lot of times, because we are such a partner-driven industry, and there's such a install base or a hegemony of companies that really sort of control a lot of the capital in the space, but they have an existing reason that they want to be the way they want to be, right? So they don't want to disrupt themselves, so they often buy the competitors or the new ideas. And so that's an exit strategy for a lot of entrepreneurs. When you've struggled as much as you have, creating a healthcare company, sometimes that's attractive. But then again, as I always say, if your stockholders are not your stakeholders, if it's not doctors and patients, then, it's very likely that your mission in the beginning will get perverted.
John, how many requests come into your company just spontaneously from people looking for investment?
It's hard to quantify, but I would say every couple of weeks we're getting somebody. It's interesting. People who've left our company over the years, I think, have created careers in consulting, and part of their advantage is they know who to call in the company. So it'll be maybe a former executive who's bringing a company to us. But I actually enjoy looking at them. We can tell pretty quickly. We can tell in a 1-hour conference call with their basic slide deck pretty quickly if there's something there or there's something not. And not that we're that smart. It's just that, you know, we know what works out there and what doesn't. Like I said, with physicians, well, so if somebody brings me something saying, well, we want you to pay for this for everybody and get all doctors to use it. Well, we have to help teach them that no one can tell doctors which technologies they're going to adopt. That's part of the reason that maybe some of these companies don't become ubiquitous, because physician offices are still a cottage industry. The 50% or so that are not employed by big systems, and every one of them, you know, just like practice management systems, they're using the Epics and they're using the next gen for their EMRs, but they're also using many that someone did in a garage in their town, and they like it and they know the guy, and so no one's going to tell the care delivery system what to use as far as a payer. So anyway, if that's one of the things, if that's the value prop, we kind of catch them. We say, look, we'll introduce this to doctors. If it's that good, then they'll take it. But we're not going to, we can't push it on them.
You've mentioned several times about doctors, but you're also interested in proposals that concern directly the individual patient.
Yes. I'll tell you a space that's there where there's a void. So there's EMRs, right, where doctors keep all the clinical information from what they're doing all day long. And then there's all these different patient health records where patients are supposed to try to keep their own record. And then the health plan has its giant tank of claims data that tells everything that's been paid for. So there's this disparate health data everywhere. And I've seen a few things, but there aren't a lot, that sort of that middle space, which is the consumer's place where the doctor can get to it, the consumer can get to it, the health plan can get to it, and kind of a Facebook of healthcare. And I've seen a few. Nothing's really percolated up. So that's one of those. That's the missing piece, right? It's the glue to the consumer. That they can, again, the patient might have, maybe it's a senior citizen with chronic disease. They can have their daughter log in and see their health information, have the nurse care manager at their health plan have access to it if there's something they can make them aware of, and their doctor's office. It's their space. Today it's the EMR's the doctor's space. You're not allowed in, and there is a view for patients, but people don't use it. And then there's a lot of these patient pocketbooks.
Right. So you really have to look at the apps that are getting, significant user adoption, the real meaningful use to criteria. And we see that, coming. And we see some apps with 95% user adoption on the patient side. It's something like Register Patient. That's why they're becoming a front end for so many different...
Which one?
Register Patient. They're becoming a front end for a lot of EMRs for the patient portal. So, and Avado does that too, incidentally. But there's a lot of great companies in that space.
Yeah, historically they found that patients, unless they're really sick and have a lot of issues, then they're very invested in doing that. But most people won't kind of keep up a health record. And
Sure.
This British study found, unless it had some kind of a weight loss, Weight Watchers gets people to log their points in, because it's tied to a direct result.
It's true.
So
fund that.
Yeah, Teresa, is there an area where you see that there's a gap, as John was just mentioning?
Yeah, well, I think both of you pointed out two interesting areas. One is understanding for the apps that do get used, what is it that attracts people to use, and why is it that they're getting used, to understand.
They're addictive.
Yep.
That's the best thing. If you look at CareVerge, made by my friend from Zynga, and the reason that you could get somebody to answer 41 questions about their health before they even notice it is because it's fun, right? The reason I use MyFitnessPal instead of, iLose or whatever, or Weight Watchers, is because it has nice big numbers and it tells me when I'm doing well and it tells me how much I'm going to weigh in 6 weeks and things like that. So more apps need to be that fun,
Right, and that may be one attribute that works for one part of the population. So understanding what works for whom and what motivates whom is an important research question, as well as the issue of added work. So we've known from an evidence review that we funded that anything that creates a lot of work for people, a lot of manual data entry, for example, it's just not going to be effective. People just don't have the time. So how do we figure out how to develop these types of interventions so that they fit into people's daily lives, that they're on technologies that they already use, and sort of fits into the patient workflow, if you will.
All right. Question here? Should, you have to. Okay. I don't know if you have to use the microphone or not. Okay.
He's bringing you one.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm just wondering if you can just dial back just for a minute and talk a little bit more about all these different organizations that are trying to, that have or hold data, essentially. So, and my question is, it's very hard to talk about healthcare innovation when you've got so many players that are holding on to different pieces of data throughout the life cycle of a patient care journey. And when you're talking about healthcare innovation and funding new ideas, for every new app that I see that's getting funding or something like that, as a patient, I worry that that's another data sink or a data hole. That, you know, it's great that I'm tracking my blood pressure on, you know, healthapp.com or something over here, but, you know, we're continuing to create these silos for every app that comes onto the market because there is no unifying structure. I'm just wondering, and it's a universal issue for us all. Can you speak to, you know, what you see in terms of data sharing or data access becoming more available? I mean, you've got insurance that have information, providers have information, patients have information. I mean, it's insane to try to keep up with. And from a patient perspective, I worry that we're creating way too many data sources that are really going to degrade our care.
John. Yeah.
Well, I don't know that they'll degrade our care. I think you're worried about the risk, right, of that data over time, right? Where did I leave my data, right? You've got some here, some there. I think, you know, that's a serious question. Giving your clinical data to you know, a small startup company as a consumer can be something you worry about, because what if they go away? What's going to happen to that data? How secure is it? You know, giving it to a Fortune 50 company feels a little better. I mean, we do banking, we do a lot of things online. But your question's a good question. How do we unify the data? And there have been a lot of strategies and fits and starts around, you know, who should own the longitudinal patient health record, right? Where should it be stored? The government, you know, your health plan, you know, where else? Where should it be stored? Or should it be stored at all? And that's a question that's not answered. There isn't an easy answer. But I'll tell you, storing, you know, a big tanks of data might not be the answer. I would propose to the group that we think about search, the ability to have tools grab the data from wherever it is, like what Google does, bring it together, run decisions on it, and then let it go back. Don't hold it.
But John, you're talking about de-identified data. I mean, I think
no, I'm talking about your data.
I know, but I mean, like Alicia's talking about more something that I could use as a patient or as a participatory patient, so that everything that I do, you know, can be found someplace by me and my doctor and the new doctor who just came in. So in New York, you have like the Shiny program, which sort of brought all the HIEs together, you know, as a good example. I don't know what Massachusetts has, you know, I'm from New York. And there's a lot of big things going on like that about the doctor information and the patient information. So there is some convergence going on there. But you know, you're right, it's not done yet. I mean, Blue Button was a step in the right direction. And there's a lot of things like that. And the Give Me My Damn Data movement is definitely, you know, important.
Just before I let you ask your question, I would make a comment that most of these responses concern one country, a large one, the United States, but innovation can come from anywhere in the world. What about people reading X-rays in India for the United States? So it's a worldwide potential exchange of information. Yeah. Your question?
Hi, my name is Michael Weiss. My Twitter handle's @hospitalpatient. And in full disclosure, I've worked with Alex and used MedStarter to fund my company.
And you're still speaking to him.
Yes, I still am. We speak loudly to each other sometimes.
often.
You use microphones in between you. Yeah.
Yes, but one of the points that I think you're not addressing, which I think you should, is that the definition of success is different when you're starting an innovative healthcare company. And let me just share from personal experience. When you start a company, and let's say your intent is to start a 501c3, there's that awkward period of 8 months or so where you're waiting for approval. So I worked with Alex during that period just to raise money for T-shirts because it wasn't tax deductible. But the thing is, we didn't raise so much money. But what I did do through MedStarter, through this fundraising campaign, is I raised awareness about what my company will be, and I have about 700 Crohn's disease patients signed up from all over the world willing to volunteer, because the concept is just matching experienced patients up with new ones. So I thought when you made a comment very early on, and I could totally understand that, sort of how much money has the company raised and whatnot, but a lot of these companies are being started by patients, by people who see a problem and look to people like Alex, and I'm sure both of you can do the same. That's just been my experience. So I think it'd be interesting if you guys could talk to the significance of having a different definition for success, because it's so personal, some of these business, endeavors.
I mean, we could go a lot further with that, saying that for healthcare, there should be no cost to the individual, or it should just be automatically available, that everybody could get the best for themselves. That would be the right thing. And this whole conference, which is extremely patient-oriented, and there's been such energy around the narratives of all the stories here, it doesn't fit at all with discussing business and what companies can get investment.
I disagree with you respectfully, because I think that the passion behind these stories is equivalent to the passion that you need to start a business. I mean, before I became disabled from Crohn's disease, I have an MBA and a law degree and was a big film producer, blah, blah, blah. But that passion, I needed that. I was driven. But to start a healthcare company, the passion almost always emanates from a patient.
Right.
So
No, I think I agree with you, but I
thought
feel
you were
that
saying the opposite. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that the patient should not, with all of their needs, should not have to be constrained to a business environment. But that's the topic of this panel.
Except that, I would agree with most of the statements here, except that here's the thing. Patient passion only goes so far, right? And you need to be sustainable. As John was saying, you have to have a scalable model and things like that. So, you have to be able to get to that level so you can go from the passion to 700 Crohn's disease people creating Crohn's disease warrior patrol to the point where he's got 7,000 who then want to be part of this network and are talking about it and doing things like the girls were talking about earlier, Emily and
Nikki.
Thank you,
Nikki.
And being able to take that and build something out of it, that is meaningful to more people, to the point where a partner says, hey, that's something that I want to get involved with. So if I built Fair Care MD, which is a pricing site for healthcare where you can get a colonoscopy for 46% less than the average insurance company pays, or something like that. If I built it to the scale that WellPoint noticed it and said, I want that company to work with, then great, and they would be talking to me, but I didn't, right? So I didn't meet that threshold. My passion didn't take it far enough. I didn't get the rocket fuel because I didn't get enough people to care about it. Now, 500,000 people have used the site, okay? But it still wasn't enough because it is a big, sticky problem.
I agree. I think many of the innovations come because people have passion first. But if there was not the potential to actually make a company that would pay the bills, I don't think we wouldn't have 2/3 of the innovations we enjoy today in this country. So one of the things we enjoy is a system that actually rewards innovation, rewards ideas, and then when you get to a point where it actually works and it's scalable, the benefit is we can all figure out a way to afford to roll it out to millions of people. To build a product that can be rolled out to millions of people without some capital and with just passion is a big heavy lift, right?
Yeah, I've done it, but here's the thing. Some things won't work unless the partner comes.
Right.
So, it's something like what Michael's created. It's good to a point, but in order for it to really work, he needs a reimbursable moment where patient-to-patient communications. So, one of Michael's tenants, and full disclosure, he's a client. I know his business really well. One of his things is that if I have Crohn's disease and he has Crohn's disease and I just got it and he's had it for 10 years, he can help me quite a bit, right? He knows what I've been through. Who's going to pay him for that? I'm not going to pay him. I would love him for it, okay, appreciate him for it, okay, but there's no reimbursement model. Now, if an insurance company says, well, patient number 1, you're a Crohn's Disease Warrior Patrol member. That's what he calls this thing, Crohn's Disease Warrior Patrol. You're a patrolman or woman. We would love for you to talk to these new patients, right? Almost as like a new kind of HCP, right?
Right.
A PCP, a patient care provider,
Right.
So, but without the help of a WellPoint saying that makes sense, that will help drive healthcare better, faster, cheaper than ever.
Right.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying. Is in order to be viable, you guys have to come.
Plus, I think there'd be sponsors who might pay for that conversation to happen, because there might be people who have products to sell that would like both of you, the 10-year patient and the new patient, to be exposed to whatever they have. So there's always a potential for something like that.
There's a question over there.
I just want to add that you're absolutely right. I'm not saying, I think the business side is what makes it scalable, what makes it work. My point is that there's a uniqueness with forming innovative healthcare companies, in that there's usually a gap where we have to wait, for you guys, because we don't know how to do what you guys do. We know there's a problem, we know how to service it, but like Alex says, I got to figure out how to get these people paid, and so that's my only point, and it should be taken into consideration as to what is success and what isn't.
So I want to kind of lead off from this a little bit, and an idea has been sort of bubbling in a couple conversations today, which is, we're going to have millions of people buying their own health insurance on the marketplaces, and then we have private employers that are creating their own marketplaces. And why couldn't there be a new health plan product that married this interest in helping innovate healthcare that patients have, and an interest in having people curate their information, share their information, collaborate with them, along with an interest, I think we're hearing from providers, to remake the way they deliver care. So like Dr. Green doing house calls, which in many cases, especially with sick patients, has proved to be more cost effective, right? So why couldn't you have an e-patient health plan that actually was trying to help build a platform for this? And I've seen products like Oscar New York or Sea Change Health that are doing value-based, but I mean, you don't need millions. You would need a couple 100,000 enrollees out of all the Americans, healthy, especially young folks that are going to be signing up for the exchanges. And maybe we can help drive change also from a plan model. But I'd just be curious to know whether something like that would seem to be, because that would then become a platform for a bunch of different companies and innovations. I haven't seen anything like that yet.
Well, the beauty of a market, I'll throw a couple comments in. When people like you say that we should have it, that means consumers want it, so somebody will fill that need. And we've already heard and felt that. So a couple of things that we're doing, rolling out at Anthem, it's something called PC2, which is the working name, but patient-centered primary care. And what we're doing is it's value-based reimbursement, right? But we've got, I don't know the figure off the top of my head, but more in the billions of dollars going to value-based primary care groups now around the country, more than anybody in the country. And what this does is this encourages the doctors to have the nurse care manager who has time to work with those patients with chronic disease and to do the right thing before, instead of seeing a patient for 10 minutes at a time and giving them data and tools, hot spotter reports, so the doctors can say, look, of all my patients, these 52 they don't need 10 minutes, they need an hour of my time, and they need my nurse care manager to get to know them personally. Those tools and having the money reward them for doing the right thing like that, that's being rolled out in a big way. And then that online care tool I talked about, which is for you and I, an urgent care in a cloud, we have a version of that we've built for these PC2 providers that allows them then to say to their patients, I'm now available online as well. So you don't need to, I need to see you in 2 weeks, or you need to talk to the nurse care manager, but you don't need to get in the car and drive in. So not only is it a good green strategy, but there's patients with mobility issues. There's patients who, if you're in LA and you're trying to get downtown, you'd rather not. So allowing the doctors to have an online interaction with their patients, and then to be available more hours, and to do that will improve care. So that's stuff's happening, but maybe we'll see. Maybe it'll go faster.
Teresa, do you have any thoughts on new ideas that might be coming up soon?
I think that Health IT definitely has a role to play in the implementation of the ACA. I think with so many new patients going to be seen, leveraging the technology to help manage their information, support providers, support patients in self-management will become really critical, and making sure that those communication tools are in place to really support quality care will be very, very
So are you gearing up for this in some way?
We'll be continuing to fund research in those areas, and for us, our priorities are very closely aligned with in terms of outcomes with the National Quality Strategy. So those will continue to be a priority for us.
But no foreseeable increase in your budgets? Or?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I had a question about patient data and the value of it. I'm seeing as a theme in all of these sessions, we're about to be generating and already are generating tons and tons of this data. Something that you said really resonated with me, which is you have to be able to solve a business problem. You have to create something valuable and sustainable. So my question is, to what extent, with all of this data that we're generating, should that value be commoditized versus free? Does that make sense?
Do you mean the patient data?
Yes.
You mean like, as a patient, my data is valuable and conceivably I could
I think you mean monetized?
Yes.
Yeah.
monetize, not
So, and I'll give you the exact example in my personal story. I have a BRCA mutation. Up until this year, it was patented. And now we're looking at ways that we can participate in research or potentially with companies. But we have people coming from all over saying, do you want to give us our data? Do you want to participate? All the way from, starting with the Free the Data movement to startups and IT companies. And I'm honestly not sure what the right answer is. Should value be placed on it, or should it be free?
Well, in a sense, when you have a clinical trial, oftentimes the patients are reimbursed modestly. But I think most of us, I also am BRCA1 mutated. Well, my family is. We want there to be better solutions and better care, right? And we want to not all die of breast cancer, at least the females in my family. We're motivated for things other than that. I don't know if there's a market for that. What do you guys think?
Is the question, is there a market for the clinical data?
For my personal data, who's the buyer? And would I want to sell it?
I mean, pharma needs data to do trials, to do research. There's a market for significant data.
But you need a lot of it. It's an aggregate. So something like patients like me can sell de-identified data.
To
but
pharma.
Personally, could I get a penny for that?
Yeah.
Because it takes 1 million data points in order to really make something. It's like your one click of an ad from Google AdWords. Are you going to get paid for that?
Well, you should have to consent that they're going to sell your data if they're selling it.
You can tell Google that. Let's see if they listen. So I don't know the answer.
Not sure if we answered your question well, but
It's a tough question.
yeah.
It is tough. I think one way, going back to Claudia's comment and John's, is you do have the patient-centered medical homes thing going on, where you can actually get a reduced premium, or your doctor can do better for making you more healthy. And if your device is collecting data and then you share that with your doctor and you get healthier, I mean, that's the best incentive. Isn't monetary, although it could be monetary, is being healthier, right? So I think that's the best way to get paid.
We're almost to the end of the panel. I want to thank you for your contributions. It's been very interesting to look at 3 different angles on funding and to, I guess, stir up our thoughts on what we consider is the appropriate role of different kinds of healthcare stakeholders in funding of new projects, and maybe will stimulate somebody. I mean, you said that $45,000 is actually a good score on MedStarter. Is that
it's the best so far.
The best score that you had?
So, I mean, but
and people are working with some smaller than that, so go ahead and try your projects out.
But that's just MedStarter. They've done well, even better on other platforms. Like Sunny Vu was one of our clients. He raised $800,000 on Indiegogo. So if you have a consumer-ready solution, it can definitely do well on some of the general platforms.
Hopefully we'll see some new projects from you in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.